Part 1. The invitation. Marcus Chen stared at the glowing crystal tablet in his hands. The message was written in flowing symbols that seemed to dance across the surface like living light. His translator device beeped softly as it worked to decode. The alien writing, "Honored friend from Earth." The translation appeared on his screen. "We invite your presence to witness the sacred joining of souls under the twin moons of Ethros Prime. Princess Zirana, daughter of the Crystal Throne, seeks harmony across the void. Your wisdom would bring great honor to this celebration." Marcus grinned and set the tablet down on his desk. 3 months ago, he had been just another mid-level diplomat at the human embassy on Mars. Now he was the first human ambassador to make contact with the Zephyrians, a mysterious alien race that lived on crystal worlds far beyond human space. The Zephyrians were ancient. Their civilization was old when humans were still learning to make fire. They were also incredibly secretive. For 200 years, human explorers had found traces of their technology but never made direct contact. Then, 6 weeks ago, a Zephyrian ship had appeared near Earth's moon with a simple message: "We wish to speak with your diplomats." Marcus had been chosen for his skill with languages and his calm personality. The first meetings had gone well. The Zephyrians were polite, intelligent, and seemed genuinely interested in peaceful contact with humanity. They spoke in a complex way, using lots of metaphors and symbolic language that often confused his translator. Now they were inviting him to a royal wedding. This was huge. No human had ever been invited to a Zephyrian ceremony before. Marcus knew this could be the breakthrough that would establish permanent diplomatic relations between the two species. He called his supervisor immediately. "Director Walsh, I just received an invitation to a Zephyrian royal wedding. This could be exactly what we need to—" "Marcus, slow down." Director Walsh's voice crackled through the communication device. "Tell me everything." Marcus read the invitation word by word. When he finished, there was silence on the other end. "This is incredible," Walsh finally said. "A royal wedding invitation means they trust you. They want to show you their most important cultural traditions. Don't mess this up, Chen." "I won't, sir. I'll study their customs and just be yourself, Marcus. That's why they chose you. Your reports show they appreciate your honest approach. Good luck." The call ended, leaving Marcus alone with his excitement and nerves. He had 3 days to prepare for the journey to Ethros Prime. The Zephyrian transport ship was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It looked like a giant crystal flower floating in space, with petals made of some transparent material that seemed to bend light around it. As he approached in his small shuttle, the ship opened like a blooming flower to let him inside. The interior was breathtaking. Everything was made of different colored crystals that glowed softly with their own light. The walls seemed to sing, with gentle musical tones that changed as Marcus walked through the corridors. His guide was a young Zephyrian named Kethvan. Like all his people, Kethvan had translucent blue skin that seemed to shimmer with inner light. He was tall and thin, with large silver eyes and no hair. Instead of hair, he had delicate crystal formations growing from his scalp that chimed softly when he moved. "Welcome, Ambassador Marcus," Kethvan said, his voice like wind chimes. "Your presence brings harmony to our vessel." "Thank you for having me," Marcus replied. "I'm honored to be invited to the princess's wedding." Kethvan tilted his head in a way that Marcus had learned meant confusion. "Wedding? Ah, you use simple words for complex rituals. Yes, the joining of souls. It will be beautiful." As they traveled through hyperspace toward Ethros Prime, Kethvan explained more about the ceremony. Marcus took careful notes, but much of what the alien said was confusing. Zephyrians seemed to view marriage as something more spiritual than legal. They talked about soul harmonies and crystal bonding and the dance of twin destinies. "Who is the princess marrying?" Marcus asked. "The one who proves worthy," Kethavan replied mysteriously. "The one who can stand in the light of the twin moons and speak the words of binding without fear." Marcus nodded as if this made perfect sense. But privately he wondered what kind of marriage ceremony involved proving worthiness. Maybe it was like the old human tradition of asking the bride's father for permission, but more formal. Ethros Prime was a world of wonders. The entire planet seemed to be made of crystal formations that rose from the surface like frozen waterfalls. The cities were built inside massive geodes with buildings that grew rather than being constructed. Everything sparkled and chimed with musical sounds. The royal palace was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. It was carved from a single enormous crystal that rose from the planet's surface like a mountain. Light from the twin suns passed through it, creating rainbow patterns that danced across the walls. Marcus was given a guest room that overlooked the palace gardens. The plants here were also crystalline, but they moved and swayed like normal vegetation. When he touched one, it sang a pure, clear note that made him feel peaceful. A servant brought him ceremonial robes to wear to the wedding. They were made of some fabric that felt like silk, but looked like woven light. The colors shifted from blue to silver to gold as he moved. "These are beautiful," Marcus told the servant. "Are you sure it's appropriate for a human to wear them?" The servant, an elderly Zephyrian with deep purple skin, bowed low. "The robes are blessed by the moon priests. They will help you understand the sacred words during the ceremony." Marcus felt a little nervous about that. What if he was expected to participate more than he thought? He had assumed he would just sit and watch, but maybe Zephyrian customs were different. That evening, he was invited to meet Princess Zirena before the ceremony. She was waiting for him in a garden where crystal trees grew fruits made of pure light. The princess was the most beautiful alien Marcus had ever seen. Her skin was pale blue like morning sky, and her crystal hair formations were more elaborate than any he had seen, creating a crown-like effect around her head. Her silver eyes seemed to look right into his soul. "Ambassador Marcus," she said, her voice like silver bells. "You honor us with your presence. I hope your people will find harmony with mine." "Your Highness," Marcus bowed awkwardly. "I'm grateful for this opportunity. I hope this ceremony will strengthen the bonds between our species." Princess Zirena smiled, and Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. "Tomorrow, under the twin moons, all bonds will be revealed. I sense great courage in you, human. The spirits whisper that you may surprise us all." As Marcus walked back to his room, that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important about tomorrow's ceremony, but he was too excited to worry much. Tomorrow, he would witness history in the making. He had no idea that he was about to make history himself. Part 2. The Ceremony. Gone wrong. Marcus woke up to the sound of crystal chimes ringing across the palace. The twin moons of Ethros Prime were still visible in the morning sky, casting strange shadows through his window. Today was the wedding day. Group of Zephyrian servants arrived to help him prepare. They painted strange symbols on his hands with glowing paint and placed a crystal pendant around his neck. The pendant hummed with energy and made his skin tingle. "What does this symbol mean?" Marcus asked, pointing to a spiral design on his palm. "It means, one who seeks truth," the eldest servant replied. "All who witness the sacred joining must wear the marks of intention." Marcus nodded. He assumed this was like putting flowers in the buttonhole at human weddings. Every culture had its traditions. The ceremony was held in the palace's great crystal hall. The room was enormous, with walls that stretched up so high Marcus could barely see the ceiling. Hundreds of Zephyrians sat on crystal benches that grew directly from the floor. Their skin glowed softly in the dim light, making them look like living stars. At the front of the hall was a raised platform made of pure white crystal. Two ornate chairs sat in the center, surrounded by floating crystals that sang gentle melodies. Marcus was surprised when a servant led him not to the audience area, but to a special platform on the right side of the altar. "Is this where honored guests sit?" Marcus whispered to Kethvon, who had appeared beside him. "You stand where the spirits have chosen," Kethvon replied mysteriously. "The moons will guide the ceremony." Marcus looked around nervously. He was the only one standing on this platform. Everyone else was seated in the audience. Maybe this was because he was the first human to attend such a ceremony. He felt honored, but also worried about making a mistake. The ceremony began with a sound like 1,000 wind chimes ringing at once. Princess Zyrana entered the hall, and Marcus's breath caught in his throat. She wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, flowing and shifting with every step. Her crystal crown sparkled with inner fire, and her silver eyes found his across the room. She walked slowly toward the altar, and Marcus expected to see the groom appear from somewhere. But instead, Princess Zyrana stopped in front of the altar and turned to face the audience. "Under the light of our twin moons," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall, "I call upon the ancient rites of binding. Let the one who would join his soul to mine step forward and speak the words of truth." Marcus waited for the groom to appear. Seconds passed. The hall was completely silent except for the gentle singing of the crystals. Everyone seemed to be looking at him. "Ambassador Marcus," Princess Zyrana said, extending her hand toward him. "Will you join me in the circle of binding?" Marcus blinked in confusion. Join her? Maybe this was part of the ceremony where the honored guest blessed the union. He had read about similar traditions in human cultures. Not wanting to embarrass himself or insult their customs, Marcus stepped down from his platform and walked toward the princess. The audience erupted in musical chimes that sounded like approval. Marcus felt relieved. He was doing the right thing. "Do you come before the moons with a pure heart?" Princess Zyrana asked as he approached. "Yes, Your Highness," Marcus replied, thinking this was part of a blessing ritual. "Do you offer your strength to protect what is precious?" "I do." That seemed like something any diplomat would promise. "Do you swear to honor the harmony between our souls across all the stars in the sky?" Marcus hesitated for just a moment. This sounded more serious than a simple blessing, but refusing might be insulting. "I swear it," he said. The princess smiled, and the crystals around them began to glow brighter. She reached into a small box, held by a crystal servant, and pulled out 2 rings. They were not like human wedding rings. These were made of some clear crystal that seemed to contain swirling galaxies of light. "The rings of eternal binding," she said, offering one to Marcus. "Wear this, and let our souls dance together until the stars grow cold." Marcus stared at the ring. Something in the back of his mind was starting to scream warnings, but the ceremony was moving so fast. Everyone was watching him with expectant faces. The princess was looking at him with such hope and joy. If he refused now, it might ruin the diplomatic relationship he had worked so hard to build. He took the ring and slipped it onto his finger. The moment the crystal touched his skin, Marcus felt a shock of energy run through his entire body. The ring seemed to fuse with his finger, becoming part of his skin. The pendant around his neck began to pulse with the same rhythm as his heartbeat. Princess Zyrana placed her ring on her own finger, and the 2 crystals began to resonate with each other, creating a harmony that Marcus could feel in his bones. "By the power of the twin moons and the ancient songs of our people," the princess announced, "I declare our souls joined in eternal harmony. We are bound by crystal and starlight, by choice and by destiny." The audience exploded in celebration. The crystal chimes rang so loudly that Marcus had to cover his ears. Zephyrians were standing and singing in their musical language, creating a symphony that made the entire hall vibrate. Marcus stood frozen in shock as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. The princess took his hands in hers, and he could feel a strange connection between them through the rings. It was like being able to sense her emotions as if they were his own. "My husband," she said softly, so only he could hear. "I know this is not what you expected, but the spirits told me you were the one, a being from across the void who would bring new harmony to our people." "Husband?" Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible over the celebration. "The binding ceremony," Princess Zirana explained gently. "In your language, you would call it marriage. Are you not pleased?" Marcus felt dizzy. Marriage? He had just gotten married to an alien princess? How had this happened? Where was the actual groom supposed to be? As if reading his thoughts, Princess Zirana continued. "There was another who sought to claim me, but the spirits whispered that my true mate would come from the stars. When you stepped forward and spoke the binding words, you proved the prophecy true." Before Marcus could respond, a loud crash echoed through the hall. The celebration music stopped abruptly. At the back of the hall, a tall Zephyrian male with dark red skin and elaborate crystal armor was pushing through the crowd. His face was twisted with rage, and his crystal formations were glowing angry orange. "This is an outrage!" the newcomer shouted. "I am Vextar, son of the High Crystal, rightful heir to the princess's hand. This ceremony is contaminated by alien ignorance." The hall fell silent. Princess Zirana squeezed Marcus's hand, and he could feel her tension through their strange new connection. "Vexatar," she said calmly, "the ceremony is complete. The binding has been witnessed by the moons and blessed by the crystals. A human cannot understand our sacred rites," Vexatar snarled. "He participated in something he does not comprehend. This marriage is a mockery." Marcus looked around the hall at all the watching faces. Some looked excited, others worried, and a few seemed angry. He realized that his accidental marriage had just created a major political crisis. The crystal ring on his finger pulsed with warm energy, and through it, he could feel Princess Zirana's determination and something else. Hope? Affection? Whatever happened next, Marcus realized his life had just changed forever, and he still had no idea how to explain this to Director Walsh. Part 3, Political Chaos and Human Ingenuity. The great crystal hall remained silent as Vextar stood glaring at Marcus and Princess Zirana. His crystal formations were now glowing bright red with anger, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "High Council!" Vextar shouted, his voice echoing off the crystal walls. "I demand you witness this disgrace. A short-lived alien has stolen what was rightfully mine." Marcus felt his stomach twist into knots. Through the crystal ring, he could sense Princess Zirana's calm determination, but he also felt her worry. This was clearly a bigger problem than just a wedding mix-up. From the back of the hall, 5 elderly Zephyrians in elaborate robes began walking toward the altar. Their crystal formations were more complex than anyone else's, forming intricate crowns that sparkled with ancient wisdom. These had to be the High Council members. The eldest, a female with silver skin and crystal formations that looked like a frozen waterfall, spoke first. "Vextar, son of the High Crystal, your anger disturbs the sacred harmony. Explain your complaint." Elder Silandra. Vextar bowed stiffly. "This human creature has contaminated our most sacred ceremony. He does not understand our ways. He cannot comprehend the deep meaning of the crystal binding. This marriage is a joke." Marcus wanted to defend himself, but he realized Vextar was right about one thing. He really didn't understand what had just happened to him. The crystal ring on his finger continued to pulse with strange energy, and he could feel emotions that weren't his own flowing through it. Elder Silandra turned her silver eyes to Marcus. "Human ambassador, did you speak the binding words of your own free will?" Yes, I did," Marcus stammered. But I thought I was just participating in a blessing ceremony. I didn't realize I was actually getting married. Another council member, this one with deep blue skin, stepped forward. Ignorance of our customs does not invalidate the sacred rites. The binding ceremony requires the willing participation of both souls. You spoke the words. You accepted the ring. The moons witnessed your choice. But he didn't know what he was choosing, Vextar protested. How can there be a true soul binding with a creature that lives only 80 cycles? How can there be harmony between crystal and flesh? Marcus felt a flash of anger. Excuse me, but I'm standing right here. And humans can live longer than 80 years. Thank you very much, Vextar sneered. Compared to us, human, you are barely more than an insect. Zephyrians live for thousands of your years. Princess Zyrana is 300 years old. You will be dust before she reaches her prime. The words stung, but Marcus noticed something interesting in Vextar's tone. The alien wasn't just angry about losing the princess. He was genuinely disgusted by the idea of humans in general. How old are you, Vextar? Marcus asked suddenly. I have lived for 800 cycles, Vextar replied proudly. I am a proven warrior, a master of crystal harmony, a worthy mate for royalty. 800 years, Marcus repeated thoughtfully. And in all that time, what have you learned about species different from your own? The question seemed to catch Vextar off guard. What do you mean? I mean, Marcus continued, his diplomat training kicking in, that in my short 35 years I've learned that every species has something valuable to offer. Humans might not live as long as Zephyrians, but we adapt quickly. We solve problems in ways others might not think of. We build bridges between different worlds. Princess Zyrana stepped closer to Marcus, and he could feel her approval through their connection. This is why the spirits chose him, she said to the council. Not for his longevity, but for his ability to see beyond the surface. Elder Silandra raised her hand for silence. The marriage has been completed according to our ancient laws. However, the concerns raised about cultural compatibility are valid. We propose a solution. Marcus held his breath. Ambassador Marcus, the elder continued, you will undergo the trial of understanding. If you can prove that you truly comprehend what it means to be bound to our princess, the marriage will be accepted by all. If you fail, the binding will be dissolved and you will return to your people. What does the trial involve? Marcus asked. 3 tests, another council member explained. First, you must demonstrate knowledge of our history and customs. Second, you must show that you can contribute to our society's welfare. Third, you must prove that your bond with the princess is genuine, not just a diplomatic accident. Vextar smiled coldly. And if he fails any part of the trial, I will claim my rightful place as the princess's husband. Marcus looked at Princess Zyrana. Through their ring connection, he could feel her confidence in him, but also her concern. She believed in him, but she knew how difficult this would be. How long do I have to prepare? Marcus asked. The trial begins at sunrise tomorrow, Elder Silandra announced. You have 1 night to ready yourself. As the council and most of the guests left the hall, Marcus found himself alone with Princess Zyrana and a few of her close advisors. The weight of the situation was finally hitting him. I'm sorry, he said to the princess. I never meant to cause all this trouble. You have caused no trouble, she replied gently. You have given me hope for the first time in years. Vextar is powerful and traditional, but he sees only the past. You represent the future, cooperation between our peoples, new ideas, fresh perspectives. But what if I fail the trial? What if I really don't understand your culture well enough? Princess Zyrana took his hands in hers. Then we will face that outcome together. But I believe in you, Marcus Chen. In one day, you have shown more curiosity about our ways than Vextar has in centuries of courtship. One of her advisors, an elderly Zephyrian with gentle green skin, approached them. Princess, perhaps we should begin the ambassador's education immediately. The trial of understanding is not meant to be easy. For the next several hours, Marcus received a crash course in Zephyrian culture. He learned that their society was built around the concept of harmony. Not just musical harmony, but balance between different elements of life. He discovered that their crystals weren't just decorative, but living organisms that responded to emotion and intention. Most importantly, he learned that Zephyrian marriages weren't just unions between two people, but bonds that were supposed to strengthen the entire community. The princess's marriage was especially important because her emotional and spiritual health affected the planet's crystal networks. So if I'm not a good husband, the whole planet suffers? Marcus asked, feeling overwhelmed. Not suffers, the advisor explained, but the harmony becomes incomplete, like a song missing notes. As the night wore on, Marcus began to understand why Vextar was so angry. This wasn't just about losing a bride, it was about maintaining the spiritual balance of an entire world. But as he studied and learned, Marcus also began to see patterns in Zephyrian culture that reminded him of human behaviors. They valued loyalty, courage, and wisdom. They wanted to protect their families and communities. They feared change, but also longed for growth. Maybe being human wasn't such a disadvantage after all. When Princess Zirana finally insisted he get some rest, Marcus lay in his crystal bed, staring at the twin moons through his window. Tomorrow, he would face tests designed by a civilization thousands of years older than humanity. But for the first time since the ceremony, Marcus felt ready for the challenge. After all, humans had always been good at adapting to impossible situations. Part 4. The Trial of Understanding. Marcus woke before sunrise, his stomach churning with nervousness. The crystal ring on his finger had been glowing softly all night, and through it he could feel Princess Zirana's presence somewhere in the palace. She was awake too, probably just as worried as he was. A servant brought him a simple breakfast of crystalline fruits that tasted like sunlight and honey. Marcus tried to eat, but his appetite was gone. Today would determine not just his future, but the future of human Zephyrian relations. As the first rays of the twin suns touched the palace spires, Marcus made his way to the trial chamber. The room was circular, with walls made of clear crystal that showed the sunrise in brilliant colors. The High Council sat on elevated crystal thrones, while Princess Zirana and Vextar watched from opposite sides of the chamber. Elder Silandra stood as Marcus entered. Ambassador Marcus Chen of Earth, you come before us to prove your understanding of our ways. Are you prepared? I am, Marcus replied, hoping he sounded more confident than he felt. The first test is knowledge of the past, announced the blue-skinned council member. You must demonstrate that you understand our history and the meaning behind our customs. A crystal pedestal rose from the floor in front of Marcus. On it appeared a holographic image of the Zephyrian homeworld thousands of years ago. The planet looked different. The crystals were smaller, and there were areas of regular rock and metal. Tell us, Elder Silandra commanded, how did our people become one with the crystals? Marcus had studied this the night before, but seeing the historical images made it clearer. Long ago, your people were like many other species, flesh and blood beings living on a planet with both organic and mineral life. But a great disaster struck your world, a plague that killed plants and animals, leaving only the crystal formations. Alive! The hologram changed, showing Zephyrians lying sick and dying while the crystals continued to grow. Your ancestors made a choice, Marcus continued. Instead of trying to fight the crystals or leave the planet, they chose to bond with them. Over generations, Zephyrians learned to live in harmony with the crystal life. Your bodies adapted. Your minds learned to connect with the crystal networks. You became something new, not just organic or mineral, but both. And what does this teach us about the nature of harmony? Asked another council member. Marcus thought carefully. This was the deeper question. It teaches us that true harmony isn't about staying the same. It's about adapting, changing, becoming something better than what you were before. Your people survived because they were willing to embrace something completely different. Vextar scoffed loudly. Pretty words, but does he understand what this means for our marriage customs? Marcus turned to face Vexitar directly. It means that Zephyrian marriage isn't just about two people joining together. It's about creating new harmony, new possibilities. When Princess Zirana marries, she's not just choosing a husband, she's choosing what kind of future her people will have. He could feel Princess Zirana's surprise and approval through their ring connection. He was getting this right. The second test, announced Elder Silandra, is service to the community. You must demonstrate how your presence would benefit our people. The crystal chamber transformed around them. Suddenly, Marcus found himself looking at a holographic display of Ethros Prime's crystal networks, but something was wrong. Several areas were flickering with unstable energy. Our planet's harmony has been disturbed, explained the green-skinned council member. Mining operations on the far continent have disrupted the crystal songs. The damage is spreading. Our crystal singers have tried to repair it, but they cannot reach the deep networks. Marcus studied the display. The pattern reminded him of something from his engineering classes back on Earth. This looks like a feedback loop, he said. The disrupted crystals are sending chaotic signals that interfere with the stable ones. Yes, the council member confirmed. How would you solve this problem? Marcus walked around the holographic display, examining it from different angles. The Zephyrians had tried to fix it by sending crystal singers to manually retune each damaged area. But that was like trying to fix a computer virus by rewriting code one line at a time. You're approaching this from the wrong direction, Marcus said. Instead of trying to fix each damaged crystal individually, you need to isolate the problem at its source and then rebuild the network from there. He pointed to the center of the disruption. If you can temporarily disconnect this central hub from the rest of the network, the chaotic signals will stop spreading. Then you can repair the hub and gradually reconnect it to the other crystals, allowing the harmony to spread naturally. The council members looked at each other with surprise. This approach has not been tried, Elder Silandra admitted. Our tradition is to maintain all connections at all times. Sometimes, Marcus said gently, you have to break something temporarily in order to fix it permanently. Humans call it controlled failure, making small, careful breaks to prevent bigger, uncontrolled ones. Through his ring, Marcus felt Princess Zirana's excitement. She understood that he wasn't just solving a technical problem. He was showing how human and Zephyrian approaches could work together. The third and final test, Elder Silandra announced, is truth of the heart. You must prove that your bond with Princess Zirana is genuine. The chamber filled with a soft musical humming as the crystals around them began to glow brighter. Marcus felt a strange pulling sensation in his chest. The crystals will read the harmony between your souls, explained the blue-skinned council member. If your connection is false or forced, they will detect the discord. If it is true, the crystals will sing. Marcus looked across the chamber at Princess Zirana. Even from a distance, he could feel their connection through the rings. It had only been 2 days since they met, but somehow it felt like he had known her much longer. He thought about her courage in defending their marriage, her intelligence in the conversations they had shared, her hope for bringing their peoples together. He thought about how she had trusted him even when he didn't understand what was happening. I won't pretend I planned to fall in love with an alien princess, Marcus said, speaking to the council but looking at Zirana. 2 days ago, I didn't even know she existed. But sometimes the best things in life happen when you're not looking for them. The crystal humming grew louder, and Marcus felt warmth spreading through his chest. I love her curiosity about my people. I love her strength in standing up for what she believes in. I love the way she sees possibilities where others see only problems. And yes, I love her even though we're from different worlds, even though I don't understand everything about her culture yet. The crystals around the chamber began to sing in perfect harmony, their light pulsing in rhythm with Marcus's heartbeat. Most of all, Marcus continued, I love that she chose to take a chance on something new, something different, just like your ancestors did when they chose to bond with the crystals. The singing reached a crescendo, filling the chamber with beautiful music that made everyone present smile involuntarily. Elder Silandra stood slowly, her expression solemn but not unkind. Marcus Chen of Earth, you have completed the 3 tests. The council must now deliberate. But before she could continue, Vextar stepped forward, his crystal formations glowing angry red. Tests can be passed through cleverness and luck, he snarled. But I challenge you to face me in true combat, human. Winner takes the princess. Only then will we know who is truly worthy. The chamber fell silent. Marcus felt his heart sink. He had passed the official tests, but now Vexitar was invoking some other ancient law, and Marcus was pretty sure that fighting an 800-year-old alien warrior was not going to end well for him. Part 5. Love, Honor, and Human Resilience. The trial chamber fell into stunned silence as Vextar's challenge echoed off the crystal walls. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He had passed 3 difficult tests, but now the angry Zephyrian warrior wanted to settle things with violence. Combat? Marcus asked, trying to keep his voice steady. I thought the trial of understanding was complete. Elder Silandra looked troubled. The ancient laws do allow for a challenge of strength when a marriage claim is disputed. However, it has not been invoked for over 2 centuries. Vexitar stepped forward, his crystal formations glowing bright orange with aggression. This human may have answered questions correctly, but can he defend what he claims to love? Can he protect our princess when danger comes? Only battle will prove his true worth. Marcus looked at the alien warrior. Vextar was nearly 7 feet tall, with arms like tree trunks and crystal formations that looked sharp enough to cut steel. His 800 years of life had clearly included plenty of combat training. What kind of combat? Marcus asked, though he was pretty sure he didn't want to know the answer. Traditional crystal blade fighting, Vextar replied with a nasty smile. First blood ends the match. The winner claims the right to marry Princess Zirana. Through his ring connection, Marcus felt Princess Zirana's alarm and anger. She stepped forward from her observation area. I object to this challenge, she declared. The trial of understanding has already been completed successfully. There is no need for violence. The law is clear, Princess, Vextar said mockingly. Any disputed marriage claim can be settled by combat, unless your human is too cowardly to face me? Marcus felt a flash of anger at the insult. But more than that, he felt the wrongness of the entire situation. This wasn't about courage or worthiness. This was about an angry, prejudiced alien trying to use an outdated law to get what he wanted. Actually, Marcus said slowly, an idea forming in his mind. I think there might be a problem with your challenge, Vextar. What problem? The warrior demanded. Marcus walked to the center of the chamber, his mind racing through everything he had learned about Zephyrian culture. You're invoking the challenge of strength, but you're forgetting the most important principle of your people, harmony. What are you talking about, human? Everything I've learned about Zephyrian society is based on balance and cooperation, Marcus explained. Your ancestors survived by working together with the crystals, not by fighting them. Your marriage ceremonies are about creating harmony, not proving dominance. So how can a law about fighting be part of a culture built on cooperation? Elder Silandra leaned forward, suddenly interested. Continue, Ambassador. I think the challenge of strength isn't really about combat at all, Marcus said, his confidence growing. I think it's about proving that you can work together with others to protect what matters. The battle isn't supposed to be against each other. It's supposed to be against a common threat. Vextar's crystal formations flickered from orange to confused yellow. That's not how it's always been done. But when was the last time anyone actually used this law? Marcus asked. You said it hadn't been invoked for 2 centuries. Maybe the meaning got lost over time. The blue-skinned council member stood up slowly. Ambassador Marcus raises an interesting point. Let me consult the ancient texts. A crystal pedestal rose from the floor, displaying holographic symbols that hurt Marcus's eyes to look at directly. The council member studied them carefully. By the twin moons, the council member whispered. He is correct. The original law states that disputed marriage claims shall be settled by demonstrating the strength to protect the union against all threats. It says nothing about the claimants fighting each other. Marcus felt Princess Zarana's excitement and pride through their ring connection, but he also sensed something else. Worry about what this might mean. So what kind of threat are we supposed to face together? Marcus asked. As if in answer to his question, alarms began ringing throughout the palace. The crystal walls around them flashed red, and a voice echoed through the chamber. Emergency alert! Asteroid storm approaching the outer crystal farms. All available personnel report for evacuation assistance. Elder Silandra stood quickly. The mining operations Marcus identified earlier, they've destabilized more than just the crystal networks. They've altered the planet's gravitational field and pulled in debris from the asteroid belt. Through the chamber's transparent walls, Marcus could see bright streaks of light in the sky as rocks burned through the atmosphere. But some of the streaks were too big, too bright. Those asteroids weren't burning up. They were going to hit the surface. The crystal farms feed our entire population, Princess Zarana said urgently. If they're destroyed, thousands will starve. Marcus looked at Vextar. The warrior's anger had been replaced by genuine concern for his people. Well, Marcus said, I guess we found our common threat. Are you willing to work together to protect the princess's people? Vexitar stared at him for a long moment, then nodded grimly. What do you propose, human? Marcus turned to the council. Can you get us to the crystal farms quickly? The royal transport can have you there in minutes, Elder Silandra replied. Good. Vextar, you know the crystal harmony techniques better than anyone, right? And you're strong enough to move heavy debris? Yes. But what can you do? Vextar asked, not insultingly, but genuinely curious. Marcus smiled. I'm good at improvising solutions to impossible problems. It's kind of a human specialty. 20 minutes later, Marcus and Vextar stood on a hillside overlooking the crystal farms. The scene was chaos. Asteroids were crashing down like deadly rain, shattering the delicate crystal formations that provided food for millions of Zephyrians. Evacuation ships were pulling people to safety, but the destruction was happening faster than they could respond. The impact pattern, Marcus observed, studying the falling rocks. It's not random. The asteroids are following the gravitational disturbances caused by the mining operations. Can we stop them? Vextar asked. Not stop them, Marcus replied, but maybe redirect them. He pointed to a large crystal formation on a nearby mountain. If we can create a harmonic pulse from that crystal array, we might be able to push the asteroids off course. The power required would be enormous, Vextar said doubtfully, and extremely dangerous. That's where human creativity meets Zephyrian. Strength, Marcus grinned. I'll jury-rig a harmonic amplifier using parts from the evacuation ships. You use your crystal bonding abilities to channel the energy. Together we might just pull this off. For the next 3 hours, Marcus and Vextar worked side by side. Marcus stripped power cells and communication arrays from damaged ships, creating a crude but effective amplification system. Vextar used his deep understanding of crystal harmonics to fine-tune the resonance frequencies. As they worked, they talked. Vextar admitted that his anger wasn't really about losing the princess. It was about fear that his people's traditions would be lost if they opened themselves to outside influences. Change is scary, Marcus agreed as he wired another power coupling. But your ancestors changed when they had to. They became something new to survive. Maybe that's what your people need now. Not to abandon your traditions, but to grow them in new directions. When the amplifier was finally ready, Vextar placed his hands on the crystal array and began to sing. The mountain crystal responded, glowing brighter and brighter as harmonic energy built up inside it. Marcus monitored the equipment, making adjustments as the power levels climbed. "Almost there," he called out. "On my mark. Now!" The crystal released a pulse of pure harmonic energy that washed over the falling asteroids like an invisible wave. One by one, the rocks changed course, deflected away from the crystal farms, and out toward empty space. As the last asteroid disappeared safely into the distance, Vextar collapsed to his knees, exhausted from channeling so much energy. Marcus helped him sit up. "We did it," Marcus said, hardly believing it himself. "Yes," Vextar replied, looking at Marcus with new respect. "We did." 3 days later, Marcus stood once again in the great crystal hall. This time, though, he knew exactly what was happening. Princess Xyrana was beside him, wearing the same robes of starlight. But now Marcus understood what they meant. Elder Sylandra addressed the assembled crowd. "The challenge of strength has been completed. Ambassador, Marcus and Vextar worked together to protect our people from disaster. Both have proven their worthiness." Vextar stepped forward. "I withdraw my claim to the princess's hand," he announced. "Marcus has shown me that strength comes not from fighting others, but from working with them. Princess Xyrana has chosen. Well?" The ceremony that followed was smaller than the first one, but much more meaningful. This time, Marcus knew exactly what he was promising when he spoke the binding words. This time, when he accepted the crystal ring, he understood the commitment he was making. As the celebration began, Princess Xyrana took his hand. "No regrets?" she asked through their ring connection. Marcus looked around at the alien faces surrounding them, some still uncertain about this strange marriage, but most smiling and welcoming. He thought about the life he was choosing, the challenges ahead, the adventures waiting for them. "None at all," he replied, "though I probably should call Director Walshin